Hello and welcome back to Under a Rock with Brielle and Guerlain. We are talking about Avatar today, book 2, episodes 13, 14, and 15.
Yeah, some really good episodes.
Yes.
The cast is like kind of firmly in Ba Sing Se, and they're ready to start that part of their lives.
Yep. But first, they gotta take down Azula,
Yeah.
who got her Eva drill trying to penetrate the walls of Bossing Say what our heroes are going to do. Oh no! Appa has to wait.
That's
Yeah.
very dramatic. I liked that.
Thank you.
It sounded like will our heroes ever escape? Like that's what it sounded like.
Yep.
Okay. So episode 13, the drill. The first thing that I just want to like make a note of is the drill is huge. It is so big. It is so massive. And obviously the wall is really, 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 really big. It's very clear that they're like kind of it's supposed to remind you of like the Great Wall of China. Like that's what I thought of when I saw it for the first time. They do the same thing. They protect a city. They're huge and massive. But even so, like when you see those little like cars compared to the drill, it's like it's so big. It's just so massive. It's scary. It's really really crazy.
Yeah.
And just like again, the level of technology that the Fire Nation has is so interesting compared to everyone else because not to say that like earthbenders aren't capable or a force to be reckoned with, but everyone else is just using the elements. They're just using water, air, and earth to fight. And the Fire Nation is like, "Oh, but we have like steam-powered metal machines." It's just crazy the difference between the levels of technology between the Fire Nation and everybody else.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think this was the secret project that was hinted at during the Serpent's Pass
Oh, probably,
when
yeah.
they was saying like they don't want anyone to see what they're working on.
Hmm.
And also what I was thinking, if the inventor had a
Oh, the
hand in this,
Mechanist?
the mechanist, if
Oh,
he had a hand in
probably,
this.
possibly, yeah. And it's a really well crafted machine.
Hmm.
Like it really, really is. Um, so they get to the wall and the gang is like, "Oh, you have to stop Fire Nation. They're coming towards the wall." And the guy is like, "Oh, well, no one's ever broken through the wall and no one's ever like gotten to Ba Sing Se." And Toph, who like knows her history, like something that I love about Toph is she sort of takes on the role of I'm gonna make a comparison. So she's like Ron Weasley from the Harry Potter movies
Mm.
in that she provides context to the gang about the world that they live in because she has lived in the modern world. She was in the upper crust of society, so she kind of knew everything that was going on. Because Sokka and Katara were isolated in the water tribes. Aang was, frozen. So for a lot of things, they're kind of fish out of water. But Toph knows how to do things in this world. She knows how to talk to people and get things done, and she knows the history, the modern history of the world. Sort of like how Ron Weasley knows that about the wizarding world, so he can kind of help Harry on his journey because Harry's kind of brand new to everything. And so what I love is that she, in this episode, and I believe the following one, um, she really shows her intelligence and her cleverness and
Mm.
how to navigate the world that they live in. Because there are rules to the world that they live in that Katara, Sokka, and Aang don't realize. Um, but she's like, "Didn't the Dragon of the West break through?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, but we kicked him out. Don't worry." And it's so funny because, like, little does that guy know the Dragon of the West is already in Ba Sing Se. He's there. Like, he got it on a boat. Like, he's not
In disguise.
in disguise. Yeah. Yeah, I just think that's interesting that the only person to ever, like, break through Ba Sing Se was Iroh. And it was still considered a failure. It was
Yeah.
still considered a failure. Even though he broke through, it was still considered a failure. I just think that's really interesting.
Yeah. A failure that a lot of people seem to like to hang over his head.
Yeah. A failure that lost him a son.
Yeah.
Um, So then it cuts to inside the drill, and who is it but Azula, May, and Ty Lee. Ty Lee kind of does what Azula tells her because she's a little bit afraid of Azula. But May just does what Azula says because she's got nothing better to do.
Hmm.
Like, I love that. I think that's such an interesting characterization and a character choice that May is just kind of along for the ride. Like, she doesn't really care about spreading the glory of the Fire Nation. She's not questioning it or actively fighting against it, but she doesn't really care. She's kind of just doing this to have something to do. And I love that. You know, we
Yeah.
love we love a steadfast monotone queen. We love that.
That's May for you.
That's May. It's also like really fun to watch them fight because Ty Lee takes down a whole battalion in like seconds. She is so powerful and she's just so cute about it. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God. Like
I really like the earth bending soldiers this description of Ty Lee when Katara asks who did this to you.
Yeah.
He was just like, just a um this little girl, and she took us down and cartwheeled away. Cartwheeled away with my heart. Like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
thought that it was just funny.
Yeah. And because like she blocks their chi and Katara is able to see that, she knows exactly who they're dealing with.
Hmm.
Um and it's honestly a really, really interesting skill that Ty Lee has, that she's able to do that. Um because it really can take down your opponent like it's nothing. Because I imagine that for someone who's a bender, and even someone who's not, to be punched and then all of a sudden your arm doesn't work, not only is that bad in terms of like, well, now you can't fight, but also I'm sure it's very scary,
Hmm.
especially if you're a bender and suddenly you can't do that. Like,
Yeah.
it's honestly, it's probably a good thing that Ty Lee is such a nice and kind of sweet person, because if she had any of Azula's ruthlessness, um it would be over. It would be over. Like,
Yeah.
like it's kind of a good thing that Azula doesn't really like, I guess the word is, I don't know if Azula really like trusts her. I mean, she trusts her not to betray her. She trusts her to do what she says, but I don't think Azula trusts her enough to like give her her own command. Because if she did, it would be, everyone would be decimated. Like,
That's true. But also, I feel Azula relies on her fear tactics. It's like I know that she knows that Tali will never like double cross her
Yeah.
because of the fear
Yep.
she has for
Yeah,
her.
exactly. So they basically are like, well, we have to stop this drill. What are we going to do? And Aang goes, well, Sokka, you're the idea guy, which is so sweet. Like, I love that Aang kind of believes wholeheartedly in Sokka's intelligence and his
Mhm.
strategies. Like, that's so cute. They're best buds. They decide that they're going to go inside the drill and kind of take it down from the inside out. And Toph like makes a hole in the ground and they go into it, which is crazy because
Mhm.
like that whole thing with earthbending really like blows my mind, because not only is she just like creating a hole, but she's also just creating a tunnel. Like, there was not a tunnel there. They should just be hitting solid ground, but there's like a whole tunnel there. It's so cool. Like
Yeah.
the things that she's able to do. And Sokka's like, I can't see. And she's like, oh, how horrible that must be.
Sorry.
But that's what I mean when I say like the jokes are never at Toph's expense. The jokes are always making fun of everyone else for forgetting that she's blind.
Mhm.
Like the jokes are making fun of them. So I really like that. Yeah. Um and so Sokka basically looks at the schematics of the drill, and he's able to kind of see that they have to like cut a bunch of the support beams, and it'll like cause the drill to like implode on itself, which like Sokka is so smart in this episode. I just can't get over it. He's so smart in this episode. Not only does he realize that like they need to make noise so an engineer will come, so
Mhm.
he'll grab the schematics, which like brilliant, but also he just figures out like how the drill works and how to destroy it. Like he's so smart. He's so smart. I love that about him. And Katara and Aang and Toph respect his intelligence and they listen to him. And I love that too, because I feel like sometimes in other shows when a character is really smart, they'll sometimes make that the butt of a joke. Like they'll call them a nerd or a dork, or they won't listen to them until it's almost too late. And then they'll be like, oh, you were right. We should have listened to you. But from the very beginning, they always listen to Sokka,
Right.
which I think is really great.
Or they'll like make the character smart and like a weakling and
Yeah,
everything.
exactly.
Which they kind of do with Sokka since he can't bend,
Yeah.
but like you said, they still have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah. And as the series goes on, he definitely gets better at fighting. So, I
Yeah.
mean, meanwhile, while all this is going on, uh, Jet is trying to get Zuko to join his new freedom fighters.
Mm-hmm.
And Smellerby and Longshot are like, dude, we literally talked about this. We're not doing that here. We're not doing that here. And he's like, but what if we did? and what happens is he sees Uncle Iroh go, ew, this tea is cold. And then he talks to Zuko, and then he looks back at Iroh, and Iroh is holding a steaming cup of tea. And so he goes, oh, they're firebenders. Now, the point of all of this, including what happens in the next episode, the point is not that he was right. The point is that he can't let things go. That's the point. And we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to that episode. But he sees that and he's like, they're firebenders. Oh my God. And again, Smellerby and Longshot are like, can you let this go? Can you please, like, for one day in your goddamn life, just let something go?
Right.
And he's like, nope.
Never.
So they all go on the train and they basically go into Ba Sing Se, and where, see, the thing that I'm curious about is where did they go into Ba Sing Se versus where is the drill? Because wouldn't they like see that? Like, wouldn't they?
It doesn't seem. It seems as if there's a underground tunnel
Yeah.
that like goes beneath Ba Sing Se and then rises back up.
Oh, possible.
Just to like make sure to keep enemies out. Like there's no way to like just like go straight in like Omashu. Like when you go to Omashu, they bring down the walls and you walk in. It doesn't seem like it's like that with Ba Sing Se.
Yeah.
It seems like you have to like go underneath and then.
Also, it's the wall is just incredibly long and the city is very big. So I guess where the refugees come in could be like miles away from where the drill was. Like,
Oh, and it's multiple walls.
Yeah. There's the outer wall, the inner wall, and then there's like another wall.
Right.
To separate the city. But the drill was going into the outer wall.
Yeah.
Anyway.
One tiny like detail that I really liked.
Oh,
about,
yeah, sure.
Iroh heating up his tea.
Yeah.
When Zuko and Jet are speaking, you could see Iroh first looking around to see if anyone's watching him.
Yeah.
Like you see that tiny detail. And then you see him turn to the side. And if you pay close attention, there's the sound of heat being.
Oh, really? Like the bubbling?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Like you hear it if you
I
pay attention.
That's cool.
And then like, then it's steaming. I thought that was like a really cool, nice tiny detail they added in there.
Okay.
And it's just funny how like Zuko smacks the tea out of Iroh's hand. It's like, like, but wise old man, that was a dumb move.
Yeah. Back at the drill, they cut a bunch of the support beams, and Aang has to go to the top of the drill to like hit a pressure point and basically cause them all to snap.
Mm-hmm.
So he flies up and he starts to do that. Which, like, really cool just use of water bending, like the whole idea of water cutting metal, because that's a real thing that you can do. You can cut water with metal, so that's cool. Because normally, like in our world, to cut metal with water, you have to put the water out at such an intense pressure and speed. So the fact that like Aang and Katara are able to just do that with their hands is pretty cool. So he's doing that, and Azula comes out and they start fighting, and this fight is really, really amazing because you just see the power of airbending. Because for a lot of airbending, it's very much like defensive. And so in this fight, you definitely see Aang a little bit more on the offensive with his airbending, and you truly see the power that an airbender has. Because I imagine that for a lot of people, especially now when there are no airbenders, that discipline seems not very like fight-y. Like with fire, with water, with earth, you're shooting things at people. What's air gonna do to someone? But this actually shows that air is actually very powerful and can be very dangerous.
Right.
And then, so they're like fighting. Meanwhile, like Ty Lee is like trying to come out of the drill to like fight Katara, Toph, and Sokka. And they're like pushing her back in with all the sludge to kind of fill up the pipes in the drill. And then uh Aang manages to stop Azula. Not really, it's not really him, it's more just like the sludge. It all like comes all over them, which like gross. And he runs up the side of the wall and like falls down so fast that he just like with a rock splits the drill open, which is so cool. It's really, 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 really cool. And the whole thing kind of explodes on itself and it goes poof. And they managed to stop the drill. It broke through the wall, but nobody got in. So that's really, really good.
Right.
And also something that's really cool about this episode is while you do see Aang's like the power of airbending, you also see how good Aang has gotten at earthbending. Like he's really good, you know? Like he's able to move these huge rocks and cut them down and like, you know, when he at the very beginning of the episode they bring everybody up the wall, he and Toph are like literally pulling a boulder up a wall. Like he really has gotten good at earthbending.
Yeah.
You know, it's impressive.
He learned how to stand his ground.
Exactly.
Especially against Azula. We see that in the fight. Like he stands and
he's completely centered. He's not being blown off course at all, which is so great and impressive and wonderful for him. I will just say this. I'm just gonna say it. I'm not really gonna comment on it. The drill, that whole sequence, especially when it like breaks, it's just very phallic. Like it's very phallic. I'm sorry. Maybe my head's in the gutter, but it's phallic.
Define phallic for me.
Phallic meaning like looks like a penis.
Oh. I mean, yeah, technically, yeah.
Like,
basically.
Like the shot of like the drill in the wall and there's just like the sludge all around it. I'm like, yeah, that looks like a penis. Yeah. Okay. A little phallic. Anyway.
The detail of this is the second time where we see Azula in like a hazy shot.
Yeah.
I always think it's so chilling when they do it. Like they did it when the first episode of book 1 when Zuko's getting up and he sees Azula's all hazy, and now we see it with Aang, and it just shows how intimidating Azula is. Like Aang is like collecting himself, and Azula's just there, just ready, just to
She was ready to kill him.
She was ready to
kill him.
Yes. And another thing about May, to your earlier point about how May's just kind of just there for the ride, and not necessary. She's not as obedient as Ty Lee is.
Yeah.
Right? We see that with when Sokka and Katara they jump into the pipe to like escape, and then Ty Lee and May going after them. Ty Lee is ready to jump in. May just like, this is disgusting. And Ty Lee says, Azula said we have to chase after them. And May just like, she could shoot all the lightning she wants at me. I'm not going in there. Which it plants the seeds already of like, maybe May isn't as afraid as Azula as Ty Lee is.
Yeah.
You know,
definitely. Yeah.
That comes back later in the series.
Yeah. I also have to wonder if a little bit of it is because of their age. Because Azula's like 14, 15. May is like 17.
Is she?
Yeah, I don't remember what episode they say it, but I think they say that her parents had Tom Tom when she was 15 and Tom Tom is 2. So that would make her approximately 17, depending on like when everything exactly happened. So she's older than Azula. So I imagine that probably provides a little bit of tension as well. Like,
okay, I thought they're all the same age.
No, she's like closer to Zuko's age. I think she's older than him. I think she's 17.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that probably provided a little bit of tension, you know, because nobody likes taking orders from someone younger than them.
True.
Yeah. So they stop the drill, and everyone is able to kind of go into Ba Sing Se in peace, ready to start their new journey. The last kind of scene of the episode is a shot of the baby, kind of showing that there's hope and light and a new beginning in Ba Sing Se. And isn't that sweet?
Yeah. And this is the first episode where the is coined Team Avatar.
Yeah, Team Avatar.
Team Avatar. Katara just like,
Team
can you stop?
Boomer A. So now we're in Ba Sing Se, and it is massive. It is
Mhm.
a massive, massive city. It is such a huge, tightly packed city. It's really unlike anything that the characters have been in before. Because even where Toph lived was not like Ba Sing Se.
Right.
Where Toph lived was almost like Omashu. Like it was just like it was like a bigger town. It was a bigger city, but it definitely was not as big as or as tightly packed or as dense as Ba Sing Se.
Right.
Like it's just it's a real culture shock, I'm sure, for everybody involved, you know?
Well, Toph Toph seemed to be used to it, but she was over it. It's like she wants to leave as soon as they
Yeah.
got there. It was like,
Yeah.
ah, like this city is just so pompous. It's like everything she's against.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
the reason why she left home.
Yeah. Um and what's interesting about Ba Sing Se, and I mentioned at the very beginning when I talked about walls, Ba Sing Se is a city not just surrounded by a wall, but divided by walls.
Mm-hmm.
There are walls between the rings. There are, walls everywhere. It's a city that's so divided and so separated from itself. And and I think that really speaks to the kind of dark underbelly of the city, the bad stuff that they don't want you to know about.
Mm.
They keep it away, they keep it separate. You know, like how the lower ring has all the poor people, has all the refugees, and they kind of ignore that. Like if you're in the middle or the upper ring, you don't think about that. It's just very interesting. And the gang meets Judy, who is their like hostess and their guide,
Mm.
and she's a little creepy. She's a little bit of a Stepford smiler. You know, she's smiling too wide. There's no reason. And she basically takes them on a tour. She shows them the lower ring, the middle ring, the upper ring, kind of explains how Ba Sing Se works. She refuses to answer any more difficult questions. And even though Sokka keeps asking to see the Earth King, she kind of ignores him.
Right.
Um, Meanwhile, Iroh and Zuko are exploring the lower ring. They end up getting a job at a tea shop. And Iroh says something that I just think is just such a wonderful quote, which is life happens wherever you are. You know, no matter what you do, life kind of evolves around you. And I think that's such a beautiful sentiment,
Mm.
that life happens wherever you are, that you don't necessarily have to wait for your life to begin. You just have to be somewhere and just do stuff. And one day you'll look up and, oh, that's your life, you know? And I really appreciate Iroh embracing his new life, you know? Something that I want to comment on, and this is me kind of just thinking out loud. This is obviously not necessarily supported by like canon, like they never explicitly say this. But I think Ba Sing Se is Iroh's repentance,
Mm.
because like Iroh did a lot of terrible things in his life, stuff that we don't even know about. And he lost his son and he kind of changed his way. He went on this whole spirit journey and now he's a good guy. But he still caused a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, especially to the people of Ba Sing Se. And so I think that perhaps unconsciously, Iroh is using this time in Ba Sing Se as a time to apologize and a time to repent and help the people of Ba Sing Se. Granted, he's just working in a tea shop. He's not like a doctor or anything, but he's putting himself through menial labor for very little money, especially at first. Though he eventually does get the tea shop in the upper ring, I can't imagine that he makes that much money, you know. But he works for very little money in a menial job. It's a retail job. Like he can't use his firebending. He basically refuses to use his firebending, even when it would be convenient and no one would see. He literally just embodies the idea that he's just some random nobody. And I think he might do it subconsciously on purpose to kind of make up for what he did to everyone.
Yeah.
Make up for what he did to Ba Sing Se. You know, he hurt Ba Sing Se and now he's going to help them. He's going to help them with tea. He's going to help them with humility. He's going to kind of pay back for what he did through his hard work and his caring and his steady demeanor.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, they never explicitly say anything like that, but that's kind of the vibe that I get.
It makes a lot of sense.
Especially because like he doesn't use his firebending even when no one would be around to see it. He fully embraces that he can't use his firebending anymore.
Yeah.
You know? So they get a job in a tea shop and the guy's like, here you go, try some. And Ira's like, this is nothing more than hot leaf juice. Zuko's like, everything. Tea is all hot leaf juice. And Ira's like, I can't believe a member of my own family would say that. The betrayal. Like, meanwhile, the gang is brought up to the upper ring. They have a house, which is nice. It's really nice of the Earth Kingdom to just give them a house. Like, that's cool. And then they say something, and I feel like this is definitely a reference. I feel like this wasn't just a coincidence. I feel like it's meant to be a reference. They ask, like, oh, can we please see the Earth King? And Judy goes, well, no, you can't just pop in on the Earth King. And Toph later repeats that, well, you can't just pop in on the Earth King. And that just brought to my brain the, one does not simply walk into Mordor.
Oh, what is that?
That's from Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
it's a meme. Basically, in Lord of the Rings, they're talking about destroying the ring, and the hobbits who don't really know anything are like, well, can't we just bring it to Mordor? Can't we just walk there? And Boromir's like, one does not simply walk into Mordor. And so that's what that made me think of. One does not simply pop in on the Earth King. I think that's a reference. I don't think it was a coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're in Ba Sing Se and they're like, something's up. Like, no one will talk to us. Everything looks a little too perfect to be true. We can't go see the Earth King. Like, he's the Avatar. We should be able to. And they get an invitation to a party and it's for a bear. Like, just a bear, which is weird, apparently. I love that they're like, platypus bear. No. Armadillo bear? No. Just a bear.
This place is weird.
Yeah. But like, that is really weird when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
That it's just a bear. That Bosco is just a bear. Because that implies like super selective breeding. Because like, for armadillo bears, for platypus bears to exist, that combination must have happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago to be where it is evolutionarily.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that Bosco would have had to have some very, very selective breeding in his life and his parents and his grandparents, etc., etc. Like, that's crazy. Or Bosco's literally just a freak of nature, like a two-headed lamb or something.
You
know?
Yeah, could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a cat. And that's one of the, like, what it was, like a cat parrot that was,
Yeah,
that scared Momo
cat
off.
owl or something.
Cat owl. So,
yeah.
like, that's normal, but just a regular old bear.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so maybe in, like, the Avatar world, Bosco is, like, a freak of nature. Like a two-headed cow or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, basically, they're like, oh, we'll go to this party, and we'll talk to the Earth King. And Toph is like, you guys, this is a high society party. You guys don't know how to be high society. I do. And she does.
Mm-hmm.
Toph, like, I love whenever Toph is able to kind of show her stuff and be rich and be like, a brat and stuff. I love that. And Sokka and Aang are like, we can be fancy. And they start bowing to each other and they hit each other in the head. Sokka and Aang, two halves of a whole idiot.
Yep.
I also love Lord Momo of the Momo dynasty, your Momo-ness.
And Momo bows.
Yeah. It's just cute. I just like, again, all these little things just make me love these characters and love their friendships and their interactions. And it really show that they're kids. You know, I just love stuff like that. Yeah, so Toph basically is like, oh, I'll go in with Katara and we'll let you guys in. Her and Katara clean up nice.
Yeah.
They look really pretty. They know how to do it.
Aang is all hypnotized by Katara's beauty. He's like, wow, looks so beautiful.
Yeah. And so they go to the party and Toph tries to pull the Beifong card and that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So Katara basically is like, she finds some random guy. Katara is like pulling that sugar baby stuff. She's good. She's real good. And she's like, excuse me, sir, my sister lost her tickets. She's flying. Can you help us? Our parents are inside. And unfortunately for her, the idiot that she chooses is Long Feng, who's in charge of the Dai Li. So the wrong guy to choose. But she gets in, and like basically there's no way for them to get Aang and Sokka in. So Sokka's like, okay, what if we dress up Momo as a ghost? And Aang, you gotta appreciate Aang, because Aang was just like, yeah, yeah, okay, all right, we'll dress him up as a ghost. Or why don't we just do this? Like, he was at least listening to Sokka. He was
Yeah.
like giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Because he still views Sokka as the plan guy.
Yeah, but he's like, wouldn't it be easier if we just go in with the busboys?
Like, all right, fine, we do that. But keep the ghost idea in mind, just in
Yeah.
case.
And so they get in the party, and they basically cause a big scene, and Aang has to be like, I'm the Avatar.
Oh, I didn't know that Avatar will be here.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And he starts doing tricks and
Mhm.
like, playing and everything to kind of like um distract everybody while the Earth King is like sliding in on his like pelican. Pelican?
Alakeen.
Pelican? Because it's a Q? Pelic on his tray. And like just before they're gonna see him, Longfeng and the Dai Li basically say, "You can't see the Earth King. Come with me into this other room." What's really cool is when they capture all the kids, the guards use like these rock hands. That's so cool
Mhm.
that they like shoot the hands, and the hands like can move on their own. That's really really cool. That's a
Yeah.
cool use of earthbending. I really liked that. Meanwhile, Iroh and Zuko are just working in the tea shop, and Jet has been watching them because he's trying to find proof that they are firebenders. So he's kind of been watching them. I imagine that it's been maybe like a week or two since they got to Ba Sing Se. Like, not a lot of time has passed, but enough time has passed for Iroh to kind of be known already as like the best tea in the city.
Mhm.
So like this isn't like the next day. Like Jet's been watching them for like at least a week or two. Like, it's getting creepy, Jet. And so the thing is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he was right. That Iroh and Zuko are firebenders. That doesn't matter. What matters is that Jet, despite saying he wanted to, cannot let things go. He cannot break free of his black and white mentality and just let things go. Like still so like invested in his morality, in his idea that there's good and bad and nothing in the middle, that Fire Nation bad, everyone else good,
Mhm.
that he can't see what he's doing. He's literally stalking a bunch of random people, trying to discover something that he doesn't have proof for, not really. And Smellerby and Longshot, like, you can see that they're really afraid and tired for him because, like, it's just them. Like, he has no other freedom fighters yet
Right.
left. Like, we know as the audience, especially if you've seen the show, that like Pipsqueak and the Duke are okay. But what happened to those other like 20 plus kids?
Right.
Where are they? I'm sure some of them may have gone off to random villages, but I'm sure a good number of them are just dead, just from random fighting. So I feel so bad for Jet. I really, really do. He's such a tragic character because his parents were killed, his village was destroyed when he was so young. And so he did not have the mental skills, the mental like kind of maturity to be like, yes, the Fire Nation is bad, but XYZ. So he just vowed vengeance against the Fire Nation. And in doing so, he ended up hurting a lot of innocent people. And you'd think that his interaction with the Avatar would kind of wake him up to the folly of his plans and his ideas and his morality. And it seems like it does at first because he says that he's going to Ba Sing Se for a new life. He's not going to do any of that shit anymore. But then this happens and he's just right back in.
Right.
He's just right back into the black and white mentality and he can't let it go. And it's sad because he really could have been an asset to the city of Ba Sing Se. I mean, he's a smart kid. He's a good tactical thinker. And I think he deserved to have some happiness, some peace after the turmoil that was his early life. But he just, he has to be right, and he has to take vengeance wherever he can. And the thing is, he doesn't recognize Zuko. You know, he doesn't know that it's Zuko. He doesn't know that it's Iroh. So even if these random people are firebenders, who's to say that they can't be in Ba Sing Se? Like, why should they be barred from Ba Sing Se? Zuko has a scar on like half of his face, a burn scar. Why would someone who looks like that be so gung-ho for the Fire Nation? Like, Jet just does not think this through.
Right.
Like, he thinks he sees Iroh firebending, and he's like, oh, well, they're firebenders, they must be evil. When, like, that's again his problem. He only sees in black and white. He doesn't, I guess, comprehend that some firebenders can be good, that some firebenders might not want to live in the oppressive Fire Nation, especially one with a huge scar on the side of his face that insinuates violence. Like, for all he knows, this is just some random kid who got into a fight with a military official whose uncle, like, dragged him away from the Fire Nation and is trying to escape all that. Like, who's looking for a better life in Ba Sing Se where they can just, like, you know, be on the down low, be under the radar, just live their lives away from the evil Fire Nation.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me of this quote from the first Captain America movie, that Stanley Tucci says when he's talking to Steve. He says that, like, what a lot of people forget about the Nazis is the first people that they attacked were the Germans. Basically saying that, like, when an oppressive power takes over, the first people to be, you know, hurt and oppressed are the ones who already live there before they, like, go out. And I think that's a fair assessment. I feel like a lot of people in the Fire Nation were probably hurt when when Ozai took over. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of people in the Fire Nation who don't like Ozai and who are afraid of him and who, you know, are angry about the way that the world, like, looks at them and everything. So yeah, it's just, so for all Jet knows, these are just some random people who have, like, trauma from the Fire Nation that he's, like, attacking.
Right.
And it's just sad. It's just sad that he couldn't, you know, like, think outside of his very sheltered and concrete worldview, because he and Zuko could have been a really good pair. You know, they really could have, I think, done some cool stuff together. So what happens is he goes into the tea shop and he basically says, like, this kid is a firebender. And everyone in the tea shop is like, what? What are you talking about? And Zuko goes, finally a chance to beat up a customer. And he literally takes, like, a guy's sword. I think they're meant to be, like,
The
basic police.
Mm.
Takes the guy's sword and starts fighting Jet in the tea shop and out the door. And it's a good fight.
Yeah.
Like, and Jet keeps saying, like, use your firebending, use your firebending. And Zuko never even looks like he's about to. He's just 100% focused on the sword, which is really, really great. Again, it just shows his skill outside of firebending, because I think he had to acquire that, because I imagine that for a while he didn't want to firebend. I mean, he chops Jet's mouthweed in half. Thank God, doing the Lord's work, just chops that right in half.
No more mouthweed, boy.
Yeah. I remember there was this post on Tumblr. I'll try to, like, link it if I can, where someone was, like, describing what this situation must have felt like to the people of Ba Sing Se, and they were like, okay, imagine you're in a Dunkin' Donuts, and, like, there's some cops over in the corner, but it's a pretty quiet day in this Dunkin' Donuts, and all of a sudden this random teenager with a gun comes in, points the gun at the cashier and says, this kid is a KGB agent. They work for the Russian government. They're a spy. And then that kid takes a gun off a cop and they start fighting the other teenager. And then that first teenager gets taken away by secret police, by the FBI. And then months and months and months and months later, you find out that not only was that kid the son of Vladimir Putin, but you remember that Dunkin' Donuts? Well, turns out the guy who worked in that Dunkin' Donuts franchised his own, like, somewhere else. He's the brother of Vladimir Putin. Like, it's so, like, that must have been the weirdest day in those people's lives, just seeing this all play out.
That's good.
Yeah.
Whoever did that.
Yeah,
put
I
that
have to try to
together.
find it. Honestly, that's why I think Zuko has such a good redemption arc, because he had to work retail. Working in retail, especially food service, changes you as a person.
Yeah.
I think that if you work in retail or food service, you deserve, like, a get out of jail free card. So I feel like that's why Zuko had such a good redemption arc because he really went through hell.
Everyone should work retail.
Oh, yes. Oh, 100%. I worked in retail for 4 years. So, yeah, so Jet gets taken away, and we cut back to the gang, and Long Feng is basically explaining that the king, his job is mostly based on the cultural aspects of Ba Sing Se. He's basically a figurehead. Toph says he's a figurehead, or Qatar says he's a figurehead, and Long Feng is like, no, he's not, but he is.
Yeah.
The Earth King is a puppet. Long Feng is really the one who controls like the military and the police and everything. And he basically says that they try to keep any news of the war out of Ba Sing Se because they don't want the people to panic and they don't want them to, try and revolt or do anything that he's doing it for the safety of the people of Ba Sing Se. And you see that because earlier in the episode, the gang kept trying to talk to all these people about the war, and they definitely acknowledge it, but they can't speak about it, and they seem terrified to speak about it.
Mm-hmm.
All they have to do is look at Judy, and they're like, oh, well, you guys need to leave. You guys need to get out. Bye. Like,
Yeah.
So there's a real level of fear among, the more, like, I guess, academic of Ba Sing Se, or the more just, I guess, wise of Ba Sing Se. And he basically explains that, like, they do all they can to keep the war out of Ba Sing Se, and that whole speech that Long Feng gives is interspersed with Jet getting brainwashed, which is brilliant TV making. Like, it's such a powerful image. Just Long Feng going off on this speech about like protecting Ba Sing Se and keeping the war away. Meanwhile, Jet is like forcibly held down and being brainwashed to think there is no war in Ba Sing Se. Everyone is safe here. Everyone's fine. Like, it's so chilling and expertly done. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. Especially the technique that
yeah,
they use.
with the light. That's really, really cool. I will just say this. So when I watched Avatar for the first time, I knew a little bit about it. I didn't really know anything about Ba Sing Se, but I had heard there is no war in Ba Sing Se before. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was similar to That's Rough Buddy. I thought it was a meme joke.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched this episode and I was like, oh my God, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. oh God, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. What? That was horrifying. Like, oh my God, they're brainwashing a teenager. Like, that's so scary. And you realize that like Judy is sort of brainwashed and like all these people are probably brainwashed. It's so scary. It's so scary. And then Judy comes in and it's a different Judy. Like,
Terrifying. It's probably like one of the creepiest episodes.
Yeah, it's such a good episode, but it's like it really
It's
oh
dark.
God, it's so unsettling. And like that's brilliant. Yeah, so and that's how the episode ends. With there is no war in Ba Sing Se.
That's what I really appreciate about this show. It's not afraid to end on a dark note.
Yeah.
It is not the first time it ended on a dark note.
Exactly, yeah. It's not afraid to go there.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of show the duplicity and the evilness of certain people, you know. And then we go into Tales of Ba Sing Se, which is kind of a happier episode. Like, you know, it's a lighter episode. Except for two of the stories.
Right. I didn't watch this episode for this podcast because after the first story, everyone remembers Iroh's story.
Yeah.
But I forgot about Katara and Toph's story.
Mm-hmm.
So when I watched that, and Katara was just like, for what it's worth, Toph, you're very pretty.
Yeah.
When I tell you, I almost just busted out crying.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was just like, nope, I can't do this. Cause like then after that, Iroh's story started playing, and then it got to the part where he started singing to the crying baby.
Yeah.
And it was coming. I was like, nope. I stopped it. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm just gonna go based off what I remembered. So yeah.
So Tales of Ba Sing Se is a really interesting episode because it's a bunch of little vignettes, which I think is really cool. It's kind of fun to play with style sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And after the darkness that was the episode before, I think we needed some levity. So we have the tale of Katara and Toph, which is great because we don't really see Katara and Toph interact too much. This episode passes the Bechdel test. But no, I think it's really good because I think their friendship is really wonderful, and I'm happy that we get to see them, be friends and be girls together. One thing I just want to say, I just think it's so cute that they like show Aang shaving his head. Like, obviously, that's something that he would have to do, but like, it's just so cute that they show that. I just like that that he has to shave his head.
Tiny detail.
Yeah.
Sokka has a little
The
mustache.
little mustache that he shaves. Yeah, I just really like this little story because I think it's so sweet to watch Toph and Katara be friends and be positive with each other because we don't always see that. Usually they're a little more antagonistic towards each other. We also see that even though they have different interests, they do still have a lot of ways that they connect, and like they laugh at the same things and they kind of care about the same things. Like, on another TV show, when Toph did that like alien face with the mud, the other girl might be like, ugh, such a tomboy. But Katara laughs. Like Katara takes down those rude, snotty girls, and she helps Toph with that too. So like, even though they are very different, they still have a lot of similarities and a lot of ways in which they connect. And I just like this episode for showing us that. Also, they deserved a break. They deserved a break. Yeah, but I also really love this episode because of the way that Katara and Toph talk to each other. That Katara's like, no, Toph, you are beautiful. And those girls were wrong for saying that. I support you and I love you. And Toph's like, I do too. I mean, I can't really tell if you're pretty, but you seem pretty. So that's sweet.
So those girls definitely died. Can we just like
No,
confirm
they
that?
just fell in the river. They're okay.
They drowned.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. It's a river in a city. It's not gonna be that deep. Like, come on. They're fine. Then it goes into the tale of Iroh, which is very special for the fact that it was the last that Mako recorded. Right? Isn't that true?
He was able to finish book 2.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the last that he did.
No.
No, he was able to finish book 2.
Yeah, book 2 was finished. It was book 3.
Okay.
He wasn't part of.
All right, so I was wrong. This is a really beautiful little story because it's sort of like his whole journey to the tree is almost like the journey of fatherhood because he talks to a baby, he hangs out with some little kids, he helps a young man, and then he sees his son. And he's an old man and his son is dead, like it's just, he kind of lives a very, very sped up version of fatherhood,
Holy
in this.
shit.
Yeah, that's a kind of what I picked up on. And again, in this episode, he literally helps everyone that he meets. Again, repenting and making up for all the bad that he did. Like, he puts the flower in the shade so that it blooms. He makes that child laugh. He gives those kids a bit of wisdom and then helps them run. He helps that young man, find himself and gives him support. Like, everything that he does on that day helps other people that he doesn't know. And I think that's so beautiful and so wonderful.
Yeah.
So the first time that I watched this, I did not cry. I definitely thought it was sad, but I did not cry. And I think that's because we don't really have enough buildup to, and now his son is dead and he's crying. Like, because most of his story is pretty lighthearted. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, remember? So I felt like there wasn't enough emotional buildup to get me to cry. If you did cry, nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying I didn't. However, this time, watching it again, I did cry. I did tear up a little bit because, I knew the emotional like core of it, and I understood, and I built up the emotions myself because I started to think about what Liu Ten must have been like as a baby and as a little kid, and maybe he had issues when he was a young man about like if he really wanted to be in the army and that sort of thing. And so it's a very sad episode. It's a sad little story. So yeah, and then it goes to the tale of Aang, and it's Aang just makes a zoo.
Yep.
He just makes a zoo.
Basically.
Basically, he's missing Appa, and since he can't find Appa, he uses his, he takes that energy and he helps a bunch of other animals, which is a very Aang thing to do. If he can't help exactly the person he wants, he helps a bunch of other people. And so he just makes a zoo. And again, the animals are so interesting. That rabaroo was so cute.
Mm.
I love kangaroos. They're one of my favorite animals. And the little baby rabaroos are so cute. Um, and they have like the monkeys and like the dragonfly lizard things, and it was just a cool little story because you got to see a lot more animals. Also the cabbage guy.
He returns. This
Yeah.
place is worse than Omashu.
Yeah. My cat. Oh, forget it. He's like, I'm not gonna fight an animal.
Whatchamacallit? I love how don't mention the war. But you can let a whole bunch of wild animals free. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, there was no Judy, there was no Daili.
Yeah.
Then, like, it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
Just don't mention the war.
Yeah, exactly. And then like other people's pets are like in the zoo because they heard the call and they just like ran. Oh, Ang. He tries so hard, and he really does do a lot of good, but he's still a little kid. He makes little mistakes.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the tale of Sokka. Sokka, he is a true Renaissance man.
Mm.
Like, he is not only a skilled like tactician and fighter, but he's also a wonderful, like, brilliant creative mind. Like, he loves poetry. He loves poetry.
Yep.
And he's a romantic. He's a romantic. He loves the ladies. Like, he is a Renaissance man. Leonardo da Vinci would be proud. Like, he like ends up like in this, like, I guess school, like this poetry school. And he is able to just say haikus off the cuff, which is really impressive. Like, a lot of people think that haikus are very easy because it's a simple structure, but a really, really good haiku, it takes time. Not only just to make sure that the syllables match, but because you have such a little amount to say, you have to say everything in those few words. And so haikus, like really good haikus, are difficult. But he's able to just like off the cuff, just like say all these haikus, and it's impressive. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
He's so talented, and he's so cute. He's so adorable. I love him. Just kind of showing off for these girls. And what's funny is that he's literally like, my name is Sokka. It rhymes with an aka. So like, why did they mispronounce his name in the movie that must not be talked about? It was there. It was there the whole time, M. Night Shyamalan. They told you how to say it.
Which
and
is
yet,
why we don't talk about
Which is
it.
why we don't talk about it. But then he goes over a syllable and they kick him out.
That was one too many syllables there, but it's just like when I first watched this, I resonated with it a lot. Because at the time, what was it? I think elementary school. I was like known as the dancing kid.
Mhm.
Like throughout school in general, I was known as the dancing kid, and like dance to impress the girls.
Mhm.
So when Sokka was doing all this, I was like, yeah, Sokka, like you do that thing.
I love it. It's like a little haiku rap battle in the middle of the episode.
Mhm.
And then we have the tale of Zuko.
Yes.
which is so cute. This whole like little story is just Zuko being awkward. But I love it because he's really trying.
Yeah.
He's trying to be a good nephew, and like, my uncle told me to go on a date, so I'll go on a date. He's trying to be a good like date for Jin. He's trying to be a good friend. Like he's really trying. This whole episode is just him being an awkward little baby gay. He's just like, I am not straight enough to deal with any of this. But I love that like at first he's like, hey, this girl's spying on us, and Ira's like, no, she probably just has a crush on you. And Zuko's like, what? Someone finds me interesting and attractive? What? Like,
Come on, Zuko.
but like, you do have to think that probably was kind of crazy to him, because so he was 13, his father burned his face, and then he spent the next 3 years on a boat with a bunch of like random people, like healing from his wound and like hyper focusing on revenge. I don't think there was a lot of time for him to like have crushes or get crushes or date or look at people. Like he had no time to develop those skills and to develop that like, way of thinking. He didn't have a normal like pubescent upbringing.
Right.
He became a teenager surrounded by a bunch of old men on a boat, which is, I think why I headcanon certain things about him. But
Right.
listen. I'm sorry, if you don't watch Avatar and think that Zuko is not at least like some kind of queer, I'm convinced we're not watching the same show. Like if you watch Avatar and you're like, oh yeah, Zuko's 100% straight, like we're watching two different shows, buddy. We are. I'm sorry. Like that's like I'm
I
not
mean,
saying exactly what he is because people have different headcanons, but if
right.
you can look at him and be like, oh yes, that is 100% a straight man. No,
I mean, to each their own, you
whatever.
know.
They're wrong, but whatever. Anyway, so Jin is like trying to like connect to Zuko, like, and she's like asking him questions, and he's just not answering. And she basically is like, "Oh, you were in the circus? What did you do?" And she guesses juggling. And this is what I mean when I say like he's trying so hard. He's such a people pleaser because he could have very easily said, "Oh no, I didn't juggle. I did something else." Because
Mm,
Zuko knows how to do like the Dao blades. Like that's a cool skill that you could do in the circus. Like he has skills that he could have done in the circus. But he wants to, I guess, be a good sport and like please her so much that he's like, "Yep, I juggled. Yeah, I juggled. Watch." And he just breaks all the blades.
I'm a little rusty.
Yeah. Cause like he didn't have to do that, but he's such a people pleaser. And then they go to this fountain and the lanterns aren't lit. And Zuko, because again, he's such a good boy. He really is. He has such a good heart. He basically risks getting in trouble and he lights all the lanterns.
Mhm.
I feel like Jin probably knew that he was a firebender.
Yeah.
Because like that was way too fast.
They didn't seem to bother her, though.
It didn't seem to bother her because I think her, unlike Jet, realizes that refugee just means refugee,
Mm.
and it doesn't matter where they're from. Because Jin seems to just be a very easygoing person. It's a shame we don't ever see her again. I would have really liked to see her again.
But we see her once, but
When?
I mean, it wasn't a good scene when the Fire Nation came in, and they cut to the tea shop. You
Oh,
see the
that's
tea,
right.
she's in there.
Yeah, she's in the tea shop. I wish we could have seen her like interact with more people, but
Mm.
because I liked her, she was cute, she was
Yeah.
sweet. And basically, she goes in for a kiss. Zuko gives her a coupon. I love that. So awkward. And then they kiss for real. And Zuko says, like, sorry, it's complicated. And I'm like, why is it complicated, Zuko? Is it the May thing? Is it the Fire Nation thing? Is it the gay thing? Like, what is it that makes this complicated? It's probably, I mean, because it could be, it's any one of the three, or it's all three. It's all three. It's the gay thing, the May thing, and the Fire Nation thing.
I think you want it to be all three.
I do want it to be all three. He like comes back to the shop and he slams the door and Ira's like, how was it? He's like, it was good.
Oh, Zuko.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just like, get the girl. There's something about the way that they draw the eyes
Mhm.
on some of the girls, like during like intimate settings.
Mhm.
I'm just like, no, kiss. Like we obviously we're gonna get to this, but in book 3, when Aang and Katara are dancing and Aang's just all like, don't worry about them, it's just you and I.
Yeah.
The way they drew Katara's eyes, I was like, Aang, you better go and get no if you don't, man. So
Yeah.
the way her eyes were
Yeah.
before they kiss, I was like, no, Zuko, like,
This was a sure
oh,
thing, Zuko.
it was a sure thing. You was in there, bro. She gave me
Yeah.
those eyes.
Yeah. But I like to think that Zuko and Jin become friends and they like, hang out and stuff. I think they're cute.
Or I forgot Zuko's daughter's name.
Izumi?
Izumi is actually the child of Zuko and Jin. Ooh, maybe.
I mean, technically we're never told
Hmm.
who Izumi's mother is, though I have to imagine it's someone from the Fire Nation.
Has to be, yeah.
I mean, I think it's May. Because I know that in the comic she's dating a guy and then they break up. I happen to think it's May. That makes the most sense.
Hmm.
Azumi also, I think, has the same bone structure as May, but that's beside the point.
And then we go to. Were you surprised that they gave Momo a side story?
No, I wasn't surprised, but I was expecting it to be funny,
Hmm.
because I was like, oh, Momo, like, oh, good, we're going to end on a happy note. No, you're not.
No.
Yeah, I expected it to be happy. So so we have the tale of Momo, and we really see that like Momo is not just a dumb animal. Like
No.
he has some intelligence to him. And furthermore, he understands what's going on. Like he understands that Appa is missing,
Mm-hmm.
which is sad.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why they have this tale is to, I think, kind of remind us that, like, Aang is the last of his kind. We know that. It's said a lot. But so are Appa and Momo.
Yeah.
They're the last of their kinds, too. And so I imagine for Momo, it was really hard to lose Appa. That was one of his only connections to his old life, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's a little heart wrenching to see that Momo actually dreams
Yeah.
about him and Appa flying, and
Yeah.
he what's really cool is that Momo hears Appa's roar, and I'm connecting it to when Appa was taken by Long Feng. Even though Momo doesn't wake up until like much later, like because that was nighttime and then he woke up during the day.
Hmm.
Have you ever got like those type of moments where you hear something at night in your sleep, but you don't wake up from it until like hours later? Has that ever happened to you?
Um, no, not really, but I know what you're talking about.
Mm,
So, when I lived in California for a year, and I was asleep when an earthquake happened.
mm,
I mean, earthquakes happens all the time in California. Like, it was not a big earthquake. So I was sleeping and I kind of woke up like that hazy where you're still basically asleep, but like you're kind of a little conscious. And I went to my roommate. I was like, Terrence, stop shaking my leg. Like, leave me alone. I'll be up in an hour. And then I just went back to sleep. What I didn't realize though was that was my bed shaking.
mm-hmm.
Like he wasn't in my room, like I was alone, my bed was shaking. And then the next morning I woke up and I was like, why were you in my room this morning? Like, why were you, or last night, like, why were you bothering me? He's like, I didn't go in your room. What are you talking about? And I was like, my bed was shaking. And he's like, yeah, there was an earthquake, Brielle. So, like, that kind of, like, I didn't realize it until the morning what that was,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Um, dude, I forgot when this happened, but my mom was in the kitchen and she dropped the pan like boom, ping,
Yeah.
right? And this was early in the morning. Had to be on a Saturday since I was still asleep. So bing, and I didn't wake up from it until like 3 hours later.
Huh.
I went downstairs. I was like, "What happened?" She was like, "What do you mean what happened?" I was like, "What was that big old bang?" She was like, "What are you talking about?" Like it took a while, and she was like, "Oh, I dropped the pan, but that was like 3 hours ago. Like why are you just now?" So when Momo woke up from Appa's roar from that, I was like, "Oh shit." Like that just
Mm-hmm.
like I was like, "Oh, the connection." Um and then uh Momo goes again. I'm just going off of memory because I didn't watch it. Momo goes and starts looking for Appa. When does he get the fur?
He
Like
has the fur the whole time,
the whole
basically.
okay,
Yeah, he
right.
has the fur the whole time. And he starts running and trying to find Appa. He gets kind of cornered by these like cats, and they all get captured and they all get taken to be like cooked or something. Like, and Momo, because he has like a pet, like opposable thumbs and everything, is able to get out of the cage. And then because Momo is a good boy, he
He lets
saves the
them.
cats, and he and the cats become like brothers.
Can we talk about those cats? They're basically jaguars, bro. Like
Yeah, they're like
jaguars just
mini jaguars.
roaming up amongst Boston State. Like that's kind of scary.
Well, I mean, I guess that's their version of a feral cat. It just
That's
happens that it's like part jaguar.
terrifying.
Like maybe it's called like a cat jaguar or jaguar cat or something.
Maybe.
Um
Yeah.
and then the cats see the fur and they kind of lead Momo to like a clue basically, and it's Appa's paw print in like the mud.
Mm-hmm.
And that image of Momo curled up in Appa's paw print with the rain is so like, oh, it's such like a beautifully created image, but it's so sad.
Yeah.
Aw. Sorry this episode ends on a sad note. Aw.
Man, what's new? I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of these. So like, the last one ended on a dark note. This one ended on a sad note. The next episode, Appa's Lost Days,
Yeah, I mean,
ends on a sad note.
yeah.
Like we don't get like a final hurrah until the next episode. Lake Lao guy.
Yeah.
That's when we actually get a happy ending.
Yeah,
But
so,
like this
yeah.
whole time it's just like boom, 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 hit you, hit you, hit you.
Yeah.
Can I get a break?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um But I really enjoy this episode because it does give us some more insight into the characters. And it's kind of a fun little breather for 3 of the little episodes. So that's good.
Mm.
4 of the little episodes.
Right.
You know, and it kind of like helps us pass the time because they're in Bossing Safe for like a month and a half.
Right.
So this helps kind of bridge that gap of like time passing, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Anything else?
So when this episode airs, it'll actually be during Hanukkah. So happy Hanukkah to anyone who celebrates, to all the Jewish people out there who celebrate Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
I hope that it is full of light and love and happiness. I hope that you and your family are healthy and safe. I hope you get all the presents you want. Yeah.
All right.
Right. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all your support. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Take us out, buddy.
And that's it. Bye.
Bye.